Hello and welcome to GameSack. I could have sworn we already did a Left in Japan 11, but I guess not. Anyway, it's time to look at more games that were never released outside of Japan, and you never saw these unless you were into the import scene back in the day. And with that said, let's get straight to it. In 2008, a little game called Soma Bringer was released for the Nintendo DS. This is an action RPG that was developed by Monolith Soft, who had previously done the Xenosaga games. What's more is that this game was actually published by Nintendo proper. I'm playing a fan-translated version of the game here so that I can get more than 10 minutes into it. At the start, you can choose one of 7 different characters, with the 8th being unlocked a couple of hours or so into the game. I, of course, chose the most generic one since I like to have a well-balanced character. The story involves Soma, which is the energy that surrounds the planet, and it's used by its inhabitants for just about everything. Now bad guys called visitors are appearing, and they're bringing nasty monsters with them. You're part of a group whose task involves defeating the visitors. And do they mean visitors? Maybe, and then again maybe not. You'll have to play to find out. Anyway, you quickly find a girl named Idea, or maybe it's pronounced Idea, I don't know. She tags along, of course. You control the main character that you chose in the beginning, but in fact the other 7 are actually following you. It would be really confusing if you could see everyone at once, and it's probably also asking a little much from the DS, so you only see 2 others at the same time. The combat is hack and slash based, like the Ys games. And like a lot of the Ys games, 3 of you are attacking everything you see in real time and gaining items, money, and experience. There's no switching back and forth between characters here though. The AI actually does a pretty decent job of controlling the other 2 fighters, as they will actively seek out and destroy other monsters without you telling them to. While the combat is good, it does feel a tad slow, especially if you've played any of the Ys games released after the year 2000. You can get lighter weapons that attack faster, of course, but it still always feels like the game is a second or 2 behind me. Also, you can have 1- or 2-handed weapons, the former allowing you to carry a shield and the latter offering up stronger attacks. In addition to your HP, you also have SP, which stands for Soma Points. You can assign different moves to different buttons like a heavy attack or a shield attack, but they will eat up Soma Points. The good news though is that the Soma Points replenish on their own. There's also towns full of NPCs to talk to, and this is all handled pretty well. The translation here seems to be pretty good, and it makes dealing with all of the characters in the shops easy. Like any game of this nature, there's lots of stuff to learn, but it's not overly complex. The game doesn't have any touchscreen gimmicks, or at least I never touched it and I was fine. More good news is that you can enable the skipping of the story and event scenes if you want. You can even skip the tutorials! But don't worry, your ship has a library where you can go back and watch them if you want. The graphics are pretty good for the system, and they zoom in when you get close to a monster and start fighting. You can turn this feature off if you like though. You can still zoom in using the select button, but the backgrounds will get more and more blocky when you do. And I don't even know why they let it zoom in this far. It's damn near impossible to play like this. I'd love to see someone 1cc the game like this. Can you even 1cc an RPG? The colors are great and the areas can look pretty good. And thank God for the map on the bottom screen showing you a wider view and also where the enemies and treasure are. I think I'd be pretty overwhelmed without it. The music is really good for the most part. It's done by Yasunori Mitsuda, and it has a few standout tunes, but nothing that compares to his work on Chrono Trigger or Xenogears, or even most Ys games for that matter. But please, don't get me wrong, it fits very well and it's enjoyable. This is a good game overall, and I'm really surprised that it never made it out of Japan. According to the rumors, it was just too text-heavy and they didn't want to translate it. While it's certainly not a perfect game, I really think people outside of Japan would enjoy this one. One very strange game that I'm not surprised never left Japan is LSD Dream Emulator from Asmik for the PlayStation. And I know some of you out there hate emulators, so you've been warned. Yeah, I know, that was bad. Anyway, the game starts you out in a seemingly random place. You roam around and you're able to move forwards, backwards, left, right, and you can even look around a bit. If you hold the X button, you can also run. And since most of the weird-ass environments here are pretty large, I'm usually always running. Of course, there's no rhyme or reason here that I can see, just like a real dream or maybe using LSD? I haven't tried LSD, so you guys tell me if this game duplicates that experience exactly. I bet it does. Anyway, you just wander around, and if you touch anything, you'll be warped into a different area. If you do certain things like fall off a cliff, your dream will end and you'll be taken to the next day in the game. Sometimes instead of playing a dream, a video will play, like this strange one that shows a VCR loading up a videotape. All you do is sit there and watch it. After each dream, a graph shows you where that dream rated on how static or dynamic it was, and also how much of an upper or downer it was. I mean, wouldn't that be for me to decide and not the game? I don't know. There's also an option to turn the shake on and off, which will stop the camera from bobbing up and down as you walk. The environments can get pretty crazy, but I've got to admit they don't seem very dreamlike to me. I mean, come on, I've had some pretty messed up dreams, but they aren't usually completely detached from all reality like most of the stuff here. Usually my dreams happen in a place that I know. It's just kind of warped and different from reality, and of course it all seems normal to me in the dream. And then you wake up and you're like, why the hell did I dream that? Also, my own dreams have way better sound effects. Just listen to your footsteps on the grass here. But this dreamland is based on the artworks of Osamu Sato. That's right, this really isn't a game. It's supposed to be more of a work of art. Good attempt, but I prefer my fine art to have a higher frame rate than this. That's right, you think it would be a lot smoother since there's hardly any polygons on screen and the draw distance isn't that far. The textures are also extremely grainy. Sato also did the music in this game, which is just as weird as the visuals. It doesn't always play, but generally it'll make you feel pretty uneasy when it does. I can't imagine that this would sell very well outside of Japan. Hell, I doubt it even sold that well there. So I can definitely see why no one wanted to publish this one in the West. It's a strange piece of work for sure, but honestly, it kinda gets boring real fast. Okay, hopefully we can all agree that despite the weird-ass name, Soma Bringer definitely deserved a wider release than it got. LSD Dream Emulator, not so much, but you know I had to cover it sometime. Anyway, now let's take a look at a mascot platformer for the Saturn. Because I guess every animal character in a game is a mascot. This is Willy Wombat for the Saturn, and it was released in June of 1997. It was developed by Westone or West One or however they pronounce it, and it was published by Hudson Soft. First off, Willy Wombat was the original name of a game that developer Naughty Dog was working on. That's right, Crash Bandicoot. Willy Wombat would be released almost a year after the first Crash game. Anyway, in this one, you're Willy Wombat, as you may have guessed, and you're looking for the 6 Miracle Gems. You used to be an enforcer in prison and you escaped looking for your freedom, but your old enforcer buddies are trying to stop you. The gimmick with this one is that you can rotate your view around 360 degrees at any time using the shoulder buttons, just like Grandia. And you'll need to do this to look around nooks and crannies and what have you. My main issue with this is that almost every single time I ended up pressing the wrong shoulder button and the camera would spin the opposite way I wanted it to turn. Oh well. You can also jump and attack. For the attacks, you have a close range attack that's fairly rapid, as well as a long range attack where you fire off 2 boomerang type attacks, but you have to wait till they come back before you can attack again. Did I mention that you can attack? Because you can attack. The enemies can easily overwhelm you sometimes, especially if your view is being blocked by the environment, which happens more often than you'd think. It can get kind of frustrating. And if you haven't noticed, the skulls of the enemies that you kill stay around forever. Look at all this death that you've left in your wake. It's morbid as hell and I love it. Along the way, you collect lots of blue gems. The more of these you get, the more tokens you get when you beat the stage. And you'll need these tokens because you have to pay to save your game. If you don't get at least, I think about 80% of gems in any given level, you won't get any tokens. There's also these white orbs to collect. For every 5 of these that you get, your life meter extends 1 notch, so always be sure to grab them. The game mainly has you wandering around finding keys to reveal more of the level, all while fighting off the enemies. Sometimes it's even a bit of work to get the keys. You may need to destroy statues, stand on buttons to manipulate the environment, jump through warp tubes, and all sorts of things. The levels can be pretty big and you only get one life. Again, like I said, it can sometimes be kind of frustrating. And since there's absolutely no perspective to the graphics, and by that I mean things far away are the same size as things close to you, it can be incredibly difficult to judge your jumps and movements, just like any isometric game. The graphics are alright. The rotating gimmick is kind of neat at first, but it wears off quickly, especially since the movement in this game isn't exactly the smoothest you've ever seen. In fact, some of the areas can get pretty choppy. The enemy designs can be kind of boring, honestly. Most of them just seem like the basic first level enemies just wearing different hats. The music is also rather average, but at least it improves slightly as you make it further into the game. The most curious thing though is that all of the voices are in full English.
Was that worth escaping prison and risking his life?
There's nothing worth leaving prison for.
It makes you wonder if they had planned to release it outside of Japan. They even have Dennis Fault, who voiced Master Chen in Shenmue, as the dude who saves your game.
Okay, I'm saving. Saved.
I will say that this game actually does get more interesting after you get past the mediocre first area, but all in all, the experience as a whole probably wouldn't have set the world on fire like Crash Bandicoot did. Ys vs. Sora no Kiseki Alternative Saga came to the PSP in 2005 and only the PSP. This is a crossover game featuring characters from Falcom's Ys series and also the Trails in the Sky series. There's a story mode and an arcade mode among other things. I started the story mode first. You can choose your character, and of course I'm going to go with Adol for now. There is lots and lots of text, but you really don't need to know Japanese to enjoy it. Basically, it's a fighting game that can best be described as a poor man's Power Stone. You run around an arena fighting foes and you only have one match to do it in. Strewn throughout most of the playfields will be treasure chests and breakable objects that contain items which can help you out in some small way if you grab them. You also have special moves like the ability to increase your attack power, which really comes in handy. There are also several magic attacks that you can do if you have enough power, so you don't always have to rely on your default attack. But be careful because there are status effects like paralyzation as well as the dreaded confusion which reverses your controls. Seriously, that's one of my pet peeves when games do this, but that's a discussion for another time. As you win battles, you'll level up, which of course really helps out. If you get into a battle which you can't win, you can always go back and fight the previous ones again and again until you're strong enough. Yeah, it's Power Stone with grinding. Each character in the game will level up independently. Sometimes there will be 2-on-2 battles, and these can get kind of confusing. You can't hurt your allies though, so just go crazy and you should be victorious. As you win, you'll unlock new stages that you can go and fight in. Pretty basic stuff. The characters that you fight in the story mode all seem to be under some sort of spell that they snap out of once you win. It's a good excuse to pit these characters against each other, I guess. But it sure seems to be a trope in gaming that losing a fight cures you of any mental disorder. The arcade mode allows you to choose any character that you've unlocked so far at their corresponding levels. This is a good way to get everyone leveled up. And who wouldn't want to play as Wimpy Chester from Ys 3? I mean, besides everyone. There's also a shop where you can buy more abilities and stuff for your characters as you earn money from the fights. The controls are awkward at first because of where they have everything mapped, but it didn't take me too long to get used to it. There's not a huge amount of challenge here, but that doesn't mean it isn't fun. It's not something that you're going to play for hours and hours every day for months on end, but it's still a good time. The graphics are pretty nice for the system though. I'm definitely cheating a little bit here by playing it on my hacked PS3, which does a nice job of upscaling the polygons. And the music is nothing short of outstanding. It's definitely the real star here, but what else would you expect from Falcom? Being on the PSP, it's a tiny bit surprising to me that this one didn't get released outside of Japan. All of the other Ys games on the PSP, as well as the first 2 Trails in the Sky games, got released. I don't feel that the rest of the world missed anything groundbreaking here, but it is a good time if you're a fan of the series represented, and you'll definitely get some enjoyment out of it. Hell, I'm glad I played it, as I'd always been curious about it.
Ready? Fight!
Okay, Willy Wombat was decent, but not outstanding, and I was glad to finally be able to get to play that Ys versus Trails in the Sky game. I'd like to see that one bundled with something in the future or something. Anyway, 2 games left today, and one of them I wish I would have played through long ago. How about Fantastic Pinball Kyutenkai for the PlayStation? Or Fantastic Pinball if you want to go by what's said on the box. I only found out that this game existed recently, and I picked it up because it's from Technosoft, which is of course the company behind the Thunder Force games. This is also on the Saturn, but it's much more expensive, so I opted for the cheap PlayStation version here. This is a very early game for the console. Technosoft had ported Devil's Crush to the Mega Drive/Genesis, and I guess they had fun and wanted to create a pinball game from the ground up. The game screen is set up similar to the Genesis version of Devil's Crush, which is known as Dragon's Fury in North America. The play screen is a bit off-center to the left, and all of your info and whatnot lives on the right-hand side. This is one of those video pinball games that can't be replicated on a real-world physical pinball table, and that always makes games like this interesting for me. Unfortunately, there's only one table, but it's divided into 3 realms: Sky, Human, and Demon. You choose between 3 characters and each have their own music. They also can do certain things more easily than the others. Like the blue guy's ball can turn into a sword, and that can make it easier to break certain things. So I guess there's a little bit of strategy here, but I'm not an amazing pinball player. I just kinda hit the ball and hope something good happens. There are some bonus rounds here, like this one where you're trying to score a soccer goal. I think that this is a really cool idea, but it's tough. Or this one where you're trying to knock the girls off of the trees. It's also pretty tough. The visuals are very cartoony and generally look good and very silly. I also like that they are extremely colorful. Likewise, the music is also pretty good and matches the style of the graphics. Technosoft is known for their amazing music, and even though what's in here isn't bad, it's nothing really memorable either. Oh, and I can't remember if I've mentioned this before, but I really don't care for these early Japanese PlayStation game cases. There's no way to secure the manual, so it just has to lay there on the disc. Overall, Kyutenkai here is a good video pinball game, but it can't match anything in the Crush Pinball series. However, if you like video pinball, you could certainly do far worse than this one. You may have heard about Sega Gaga from Sega for the Dreamcast, and then again maybe you haven't. I sure didn't know of its existence until well after its 2001 release, and it was said you could only acquire the game directly from Sega in Japan, so even getting it back then was pretty tough. Basically, this is an RPG where Sega pokes fun of itself. And that right there really makes me sad that it wasn't released outside of Japan. I mean, look at this. Do you think Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft would ever make fun of themselves like this? I would have killed for this game. Well, I'm not literally, but you know. The game takes place in a world where Sega has made lots of mistakes and only controls 3% of the video game market, and their latest console has bombed pretty hard. So yeah, it basically takes place in reality. Oh, Sega. In the game, they've tried everything in order to save the company, and it's all failed. So they turn to the only thing that can save Sega now: an anime kid. You and an anime girl are recruited by Sega to save them. The game mostly takes place at Sega itself, which is comprised of several huge buildings full of staff, programmers, designers, and the such. As you roam around these buildings, you'll get into random battles with what appear to be monsters. The battles themselves are pretty simple, as you can do a basic attack, use magic, try to run away, or use an item. You can get away with just the basic attacks for most of the enemies. Sometimes after a battle ends, the enemy sticks around. This is where you enter negotiations and try to hire them. That's right, you hire your enemies, which are all basically Sega employees anyway, I think. I don't really know what's going on here, so I just select random things until I get the bar on the left high enough to hire the damn person or monster or whatever the hell it is. Each enemy has different things that they're skilled at, like programming, designing, or whatever. Once you hire the individual, you can give them a name. Each R&D department acts as a giant dungeon. You even get to visit the disc pressing plant to get rid of the defective discs. The environment is made out of polygons, but you and other characters are all 2D sprites, which gives the game a unique look. Well, that is unless you've played a Paper Mario game. The monster designs range from wacky to idiotic. You can tell that everything is crazy insane here. There's even an homage to Thunder Force in here, which honestly brought a tear to my eye. There's been no fan translations of this one that I know of, so you pretty much have to use a guide to get around. I really wish that I could understand the crazy stuff that's going on here, because I know I would love it. Though I guess maybe I could try using the Google Translate phone app on the text, but that will really slow you down and, well, I mean, just look how glitchy and weird it is. This is making things worse, not better. Anyway, once you clear an R&D department or two, you can put your best programmers to work in order to make the mega hit game that will save Sega. Be careful though, because you don't have a ton of time and your grip on the industry depletes even further. And if you leave a dungeon for any reason, 30 days will pass and that does not help your standing in the industry at all. Stupid anime kid, can't even save Sega. Work your staff hard, but make sure they don't get burned out. Once your game is done, if you're lucky, you'll reclaim some of your market share. There are tons and tons of different games that you can make. Some of the games aren't real and they're obviously parodies of non-Sega games, but it's pretty awesome that they're in here. There are shops where you can buy items, and some of them have cartoony cashiers and one of them has this guy. I wonder if he worked for Sega in real life, maybe as a janitor. There are a couple of interesting mechanics in this game. First is that you have a magic meter or whatever, but the higher level you are, the more points certain moves use. So healing a bit of your life at level 3 may only cost 4 points, but healing that same amount at level 20 may be 17 points as a random example. And speaking of random, this game employs the random battle method for its RPG turn-based battles. However, if you hold down the B button you can run, and as long as you're running you won't get into any random battles. I really like this option. But this game does require some intense grinding sometimes. Fortunately, that's something that I personally don't mind doing usually. I just like being at least a few levels ahead of whatever the guide is recommending. The graphics are relatively sharp and colorful, but they don't bring the Dreamcast to its knees with crazy effects or anything. But they're definitely good enough for the game, I think. As far as the music and sound go, it's good enough. The music does get better as you get further into the game though. And once you get used to where everything is in the menus and how they work, the control is fine as well. Sadly, it's just not import friendly at all. I can see why Sega didn't bother translating it for the Western market, as it'd clearly be a huge job and the Dreamcast was practically dead at that point anyway. Still, this was a great swan song for Sega's final system. You can really tell that the developers loved Sega, its history, and especially its fans. I just wish that modern Sega would translate it and release it on modern platforms so that everyone can enjoy it. Come on, Sega! Alright, so those are some more games that never got localized, so at least now you know what they're about if you didn't already. And I hope Sega of Japan didn't delete the source code for Sega Gaga so that maybe someday it can be translated, but I'll be honest, I don't think Sega's gonna bother because they're just not the same company that they used to be back then. Anyway, what are some games that you feel should have come out of Japan but didn't? Let me know. In the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack. Oh, hi Cyborg009. I'm sorry I couldn't include you in this episode, but maybe in Left in Japan 12 I can fit you in. I can't understand anything you're saying, Cyborg009. You're like, me, 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 but then you're all muffled and you've got a little bit of reverb to try to hide that. You're so stupid. Ah, Glaylancer. Now you are a game for a real system. The Super Nintendo technically has an 8-bit CPU, while the Genesis technically has a 32-bit CPU. And that's why the Genesis is 4 times better than the Super Nintendo. What do you have to say about that, Glaylancer?